Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring how our brains actually transform simple sensations into this vibrant world of experience.
Yeah.
We've got diagrams, we've got studies, we've even got some real life examples to kind of unpack, um,
hmm
all leading us from basic sound perception to some seriously complex human behavior.
Yeah.
Ever wonder how you actually experience the world around you?
Yeah.
Buckle up because we're about to find out.
It's incredible, isn't it, to think that something as fundamental as sound starts with just simple vibrations in the air.
Right.
Those vibrations travel into your ear and somehow become the music that we enjoy, the conversations we have, even like those annoying alerts on our phones.
Seriously, it's like our ears are translating a secret code and the brain is putting together the message.
Yeah.
I remember learning about the eardrum and those tiny bones in the middle ear, the malleus and ficus manistapes.
Right.
But to be honest, I'm a little fuzzy on how they all work together.
Well, think of it like a chain reaction.
Okay.
The sound waves hit the eardrum and they make it vibrate.
Uh-huh.
And those vibrations then pass through those tiny bones, the malleus, the incus stapes,
Yeah.
each one kind of amplifying the signal along the way.
Right.
It's like a microscopic Rube Goldberg machine for sound.
Okay, that's a much cooler way to think about it than what I learned in school.
Yeah,
And I remember that last bone, the stapes, connects to the inner ear.
exactly. It pushes on a membrane called the oval window,
Yeah.
which is kind of like the entrance to the inner ear.
Uh,
And inside the inner ear is the cochlea, a spiral-shaped structure that's key to transforming those vibrations into something that our brains can actually understand.
The cochlea, now we're getting to the really interesting part. It's
Yeah.
like a snail shell filled with fluid, and inside is this super sensitive membrane called the basilar membrane.
Right.
What makes this membrane so special?
Well, think of the basilar membrane like a finely tuned harp.
Okay.
When the stapes vibrates the oval window, it creates waves in the fluid inside the cochlea. And these waves cause different parts of the basilar membrane to vibrate, depending on the frequency of the sound.
Okay.
High-pitched sounds will vibrate the base of the membrane, while low-pitched sounds activate the tip.
So it's literally like a tiny keyboard inside our ear.
Yeah,
Each key represents a different frequency. And when a sound wave hits, it presses the corresponding key, sending a signal to the brain.
that's a great analogy, but it's not just about the membrane vibrating.
Right.
Attached to the basilar membrane are these tiny hair cells that act like mini microphones.
Okay.
And when the membrane vibrates, it bends these hair cells, and that triggers them to release these chemical messengers called neurotransmitters.
So the hair cells convert the mechanical vibrations into electrical signals.
Yeah,
That's pretty clever.
it's incredibly sophisticated, and these neurotransmitters then communicate with the auditory nerve,
Okay.
sending signals to the brain that tell us, hey, you're hearing a sound, and here's what it sounds like.
Wow, it's mind-blowing how many steps are involved in something as seemingly simple as hearing.
Yeah, it all happens in milliseconds.
Really?
That speed allows us to react to sounds in real time, whether it's a car horn blaring or a friend calling our name or a beautiful melody kind of unfolding.
Okay, so we've got the basics of pitch down,
Uh-huh.
but here's something I've always wondered about. How do we tell the difference between different instruments playing the same note?
Okay.
Like a flute and a guitar, both playing a middle C, sound completely different even though it's the same note.
Right.
How does our brain differentiate between those?
That's where timbre comes in.
Okay.
It's often described as the color or the quality of a sound,
Yeah.
and it's what makes each instrument unique.
Timba, I've heard musicians talk about it, but I could never quite wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
Is it something to do with the shape of the sound wave?
You're on the right track.
Okay.
Every sound, even a simple note, is actually made up of multiple frequencies blended together.
Uh-huh.
The lowest frequency is called the fundamental frequency,
Right.
and that determines the pitch that we hear. But layered on top of that are other higher frequencies called overtones.
So those overtones are like the extra spices that give each instrument its own flavor.
Precisely, the unique combination of overtones present in a sound is what creates its distinct timbre.
Okay.
And our brains analyze the complex waveform,
Right.
picking out the different overtones to tell us whether we're hearing a trumpet, a piano, a human voice, or any other sound source.
It's like our brain is doing a real-time sound analysis,
Yeah.
breaking down each sound into its individual ingredients.
Uh-huh.
It's no wonder we can instantly tell the difference between our favorite singer's voice and someone trying to imitate them.
Absolutely. And there's another layer of auditory processing that's just as impressive.
Okay.
How our brains figure out where a sound is coming from.
Right.
Have you ever thought about how you instinctively know if someone is calling your name from your left or your right?
Now that you mention it, it is pretty amazing how we do that without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Does it have something to do with the fact that we have 2 ears?
Exactly. Our brains use several cues to localize sound,
Okay.
including the slight differences in arrival time and intensity of sound waves reaching each ear.
So if a sound is coming from my left, it will reach my left ear a tiny bit sooner and sound a bit louder than it does to my right ear.
That's right. Your brain is incredibly sensitive to these tiny differences.
Wow.
Even a difference of a fraction of a millisecond is enough for your brain to pinpoint the location of a sound.
It's like our brains are constantly creating this 3D soundscape of the world around us using nothing but the information coming in through our ears.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
And it's not just about hearing.
Right.
Our ears also house another amazing system that contributes to our sense of balance and spatial awareness.
Okay.
Have you ever wondered how you can stand upright, walk, or even spin around without getting dizzy?
You're talking about the vestibular system, right?
Yeah.
I remember seeing diagrams of those loopy structures in the inner ear, but I'm not sure I ever understood how they worked.
The vestibular system is like our internal gyroscope, constantly monitoring our head's position and movement.
Uh-huh.
It consists of 3 fluid-filled semicircular canals and 2 otolith organs, all located in the inner ear.
I'm picturing tiny water slides in our ears.
Yeah.
What happens when we move our heads?
When we rotate our heads, the fluid in those semicircular canals sloshes around,
Huh.
and it bends tiny hair cells that send signals to the brain about the direction and the speed of the movement.
Okay.
The otolith organs, on the other hand, detect linear acceleration, like when we're speeding up in a car or moving up and down in an elevator.
So it's like those hair cells are sending the brain constant updates on our head's position,
Yeah.
helping us stay oriented and balanced no matter how we move.
Exactly.
It's amazing how much goes on without us even realizing it.
It's a truly remarkable system, and it doesn't work in isolation.
Okay.
It collaborates with our vision and proprioception to create a seamless sense of balance and coordination.
Proprioception, that rings a bell. Remind me what that is again.
Proprioception is your body's awareness of where its parts are in space, even when you can't see them.
Okay.
It's like an internal GPS system, relying on sensors in your muscles and joints to tell your brain the position and movement of your limbs.
So it's like our brains are receiving a constant stream of data from our ears, eyes, muscles, and joints,
Right.
all working together to create a unified sense of where we are and how we're moving in the world.
Yeah.
No wonder we can dance, play sports, navigate through crowded rooms without bumping into everything.
It's a testament to the incredible power and coordination of the human brain.
Okay, I think I'm starting to appreciate my ears a lot more.
Yeah.
They're not just for listening to music, they're essential for balance coordination and spatial awareness.
Right.
But I know there's a whole world of other senses waiting to be explored. What's next on our sensory journey?
Let's move from sound and balance to the sense of touch.
Okay.
Our skin is like a giant sensory antenna,
I love that analogy.
picking up an incredible array of information about the world around us.
And it makes me realize how much we rely on touch in our everyday lives. We use it to explore textures, feel temperatures, experience pressure, and even sense pain. It's hard to imagine navigating the world without it.
It's truly remarkable how much information we gather through touch.
Right.
And it all starts with those specialized receptors embedded in our skin.
Uh-huh.
Some respond to light touch, others to deep pressure, and still others to changes in temperature.
I remember learning about those receptors in biology class, names like Meissner's corpuscles and Pacinian corpuscles.
Right.
They always sounded so intimidating.
Yeah.
But what do those receptors actually do?
Each type of receptor is tuned to a specific kind of sensation.
Okay.
For example, Meissner's corpuscles are those fine touch receptors that are especially sensitive to light strokes and vibrations.
Uh-huh.
They're concentrated in areas like our fingertips, lips, and erogenous zones,
Okay.
where we need to make fine distinctions between textures and sensations.
So that's why a gentle caress feels so different from a firm handshake.
Exactly. Those subtle differences in pressure and vibration are picked up by those specialized receptors.
Right.
Pacinian corpuscles, on the other hand, are more like the deep pressure sensors.
Yeah.
They're what help us feel a firm grip, a deep tissue massage, or even the vibrations of a phone buzzing in our pocket.
It's amazing to think that our skin has this whole network of sensors constantly sending messages to the brain about what we're touching.
And don't forget about pain receptors.
Right.
Those are the ones that let us know when something is too hot, too cold, or potentially harmful.
Right.
Pain might seem unpleasant,
Yeah.
but it's actually a vital protective mechanism.
Right.
It tells us to pull our hand away from a hot stove or to seek medical attention when something's wrong.
It's a reminder that not all sensations are pleasant, but they all serve a purpose.
Right.
So we've got these receptors sending signals to the brain about touch, pressure, temperature, and pain. But how does the brain actually process all that information and create a coherent sense of touch?
That's where the somatosensory cortex comes in. It's a region of the brain that receives input from those touch receptors all over the body,
Right.
and it creates a map of our tactile world.
So if I touch something with my right hand, that signal travels up to my brain and activates a specific area in the somatosensory cortex that represents my right hand.
Exactly. The somatosensory cortex is organized like a little person,
Okay.
with different areas representing different parts of the body. The more sensitive a body part is, the more real estate it gets in the somatosensory cortex.
That explains why our hands and faces feel so much more sensitive than, say, our elbows or knees. Those areas get more processing power in the brain.
Precisely, it's a reflection of how important tactile information is for those areas.
Right.
We use our hands for intricate tasks, and our faces are crucial for social interaction and expressing emotions.
It makes me wonder if those brain maps can change over time. For example, if someone loses a limb, does the corresponding area in the somatosensory cortex just go silent?
That's a great question, and it highlights the incredible plasticity of the brain.
Thank-
Research has shown that after an amputation, the brain can actually rewire itself,
Wow.
with areas that used to represent the missing limb taking on new roles.
So the brain isn't just a fixed map. It's constantly adapting and reorganizing itself based on our experiences.
Exactly, and this plasticity isn't limited to cases of injury.
Right.
It happens all the time as we
Right.
learn new skills, explore new environments, and engage in new activities.
Right.
The brain is a dynamic organ, constantly shaping and reshaping itself throughout our lives.
That's a really empowering thought. It means that we have the potential to change our brains, to
Yeah,
learn new things, and to adapt to new situations.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And that brings us to another remarkable aspect of touch.
Okay.
It's a close connection to our emotional well-being.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever noticed how a hug from a loved one can make you feel safe and comforted?
Of course, there's something so powerful about physical touch, especially from people we care about. It goes way beyond just a sensory experience. It's deeply emotional.
Scientists have actually identified a specific type of nerve fiber in our skin called C-tactile afferents
Okay.
that respond to gentle, slow strokes.
Right.
These fibers send signals to the brain that activate areas associated with pleasure and social bonding.
So those gentle touches literally trigger feel-good responses in the brain.
That's right. It's why we crave hugs, cuddles, and gentle caresses.
Yeah.
It's not just about the physical sensation, it's about the emotional connection that touch fosters.
It's amazing how a simple touch can convey so much emotion and have such a profound impact on our well-being.
Absolutely. And it highlights the interconnectedness of our senses and our emotions.
Right.
Touch is more than just a way of gathering information about the world.
Uh-huh.
It's a powerful language of emotion and connection.
Okay, we've covered touch and its incredible connection to our emotional lives. Now I'm ready to dive into another sense that's near and dear to my heart, taste.
No.
I'm fascinated by how our tongues can distinguish between such a wide array of flavors.
Taste is like a chemical symphony playing out on your tongue.
I love that.
It all starts with those tiny bumps that you can see on your tongue. Those are papillae, and they house your taste buds.
So those bumps aren't the taste buds themselves.
Right? The taste buds are actually microscopic clusters of cells tucked within those papillae.
Oh.
Each taste bud contains a variety of receptor cells,
Mm-hmm.
and each type of receptor is tuned to a specific taste: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami.
Umami. That's the savory, meaty taste, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious how that fits into the picture.
Umami was recognized relatively recently compared to the other basic tastes.
Okay.
It's triggered by glutamate, an amino acid that's abundant in protein-rich foods like meat, cheese, and mushrooms.
So our taste buds are like a team of specialized detectives.
Yeah.
Each one searching for clues about the chemical makeup of our food. And when they find a match, they send a signal to the brain saying, hey, this is sweet, or whoa, this is sour.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those signals travel along cranial nerves to the gustatory cortex,
Mm-hmm.
a region of the brain dedicated to processing taste information. And from there, those signals get integrated with input from other senses, including smell, to create our perception of flavor.
Ah, that's why food tastes so bland when we have a stuffy nose. We're missing out on that crucial factory input.
That's right. Flavor is a multisensory experience, and smell plays a huge role in how we perceive the taste of food.
It makes me wonder if flavor is so dependent on smell. Why do we even have taste buds in the first place?
Taste buds are like the first line of defense.
Okay.
They help us quickly identify the basic qualities of food even before we've had a chance to process its aroma.
Uh-huh.
Those initial signals from the taste buds can tell us whether something is potentially harmful, nutritious, or simply enjoyable.
It's like our tongue is doing a quick safety check, making sure we're not about to bite into something poisonous or rotten.
Exactly. Those bitter taste receptors are especially attuned to detecting potential toxins, which
Right.
explains why many poisonous plants taste bitter.
Yeah.
Our aversion to bitterness is a protective mechanism that helped our ancestors avoid ingesting harmful substances.
It's a reminder that our senses have evolved to keep us safe, as well as to help us experience the world.
And speaking of safety and survival, let's not forget the importance of salt.
Right.
Our bodies need sodium to function properly,
Uh-huh.
and those salt receptors help us identify foods that contain this essential nutrient.
That explains why we crave salty snacks, especially when we're sweating and losing electrolytes. It's our body's way of saying, hey, I need more sodium.
And, of course, we can't forget about sweet taste receptors.
Right.
Our attraction to sweetness is deeply ingrained as sugars provide a quick source of energy.
Uh-huh.
This preference likely helped our ancestors identify ripe fruits and honey, both of which are rich in calories and nutrients.
So our taste preferences, even our cravings, are shaped by our evolutionary history. It's fascinating to think that something as simple as a preference for salty snacks or a sweet treat can have roots that go back thousands of years.
Absolutely. And while our taste preferences are partly influenced by our biology and evolution, they're also shaped by our individual experiences, cultural influences, and personal learning.
That makes sense. We develop preferences for certain foods based on what we're exposed to as children, what our families eat, and even what's considered desirable in our culture.
Uh-huh.
I know I have a few food aversions that stem from childhood experiences, and I'm sure others do too.
It's a reminder that our sensory experiences are always intertwined with our personal histories and cultural contexts. And speaking of experiences,
Okay.
let's move on to a sense that's deeply tied to memory and emotion, the sense of smell.
Smell. It's such a powerful sense of a whiff of perfume, a freshly baked pie, or even the scent of rain can instantly transport us back to a specific time and place,
Right.
evoke strong emotions, and even trigger vivid memories.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much information is packed into those tiny odor molecules.
The olfactory system is incredibly complex and fascinating.
Uh-huh.
It all starts with those odor molecules wafting through the air,
Right.
entering our nostrils and reaching a patch of tissue high up in the nasal cavity called the olfactory epithelium.
And that's where the magic happens, right? Those odor molecules bind to special receptors,
Yeah.
triggering a cascade of signals that ultimately reach the brain.
Exactly. The olfactory epithelium is home to millions of olfactory receptor neurons, each one specialized to detect a particular type of odor molecule.
So it's like a giant puzzle, with each odor molecule fitting into its corresponding receptor like a missing piece.
That's a great analogy. And when an odor molecule binds to its receptor, it triggers a signal that travels along the olfactory nerve to the olfactory bulb,
Okay.
a structure located at the base of the brain.
The olfactory bulb, it's like the grand central station for smell, where all those signals converge and get sorted before being sent on to other parts of the brain.
Precisely. And from the olfactory bulb, those signals are relayed to a variety of brain regions, including the amygdala, which is involved in processing emotions,
Right.
and the hippocampus, which plays a key role in memory formation.
That explains why smells can be so emotionally evocative and trigger such vivid memories. It's like those scents have a direct line to the parts of our brains that process feelings and store experiences.
Exactly. And that close connection between the olfactory system and the limbic system,
Okay.
which is involved in emotions, motivation, and memory,
Oh, yeah.
is what makes smell such a powerful and primal sense.
I'm realizing that we often take our sense of smell for granted.
Uh-huh.
We focus on sight and sound, but smell is this whole other layer of sensory experience that shapes our perceptions, emotions, and even our memories.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating and often overlooked sense,
Yeah.
and it plays a much bigger role in our lives than we might realize.
Okay, we've explored the wonders of touch, taste, and smell. Now I'm curious to shift gears a bit and dive into a different realm of experience, sleep.
Okay.
We all do it, but what's actually happening in our brains and bodies when we drift off to dreamland?
Sleep is an essential part of life, but it's also one of the most mysterious for centuries. Scientists have been trying to understand why we sleep
Right.
and what happens in our brains when we do. And while we've made significant progress, there's still much we don't know.
I know, I definitely feel the effects when I don't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
I'm grumpy, foggy-headed, and can barely function.
Uh-huh.
But what's going on at the physiological level when we're sleep deprived?
Sleep isn't just about resting our bodies.
Okay.
It's an active process that's essential for restoring our physical and mental energy, consolidating memories, clearing out toxins, and regulating our hormones.
So it's like our brains and bodies are doing a whole lot of housekeeping while we're snoozing.
Yeah.
I remember learning about different stages of sleep, like REM sleep and non-REM sleep.
Right.
But I'm not sure I ever understood what distinguishes those stages.
We cycle through those different stages throughout the night, each one marked by distinct brainwave patterns and physiological changes.
Okay.
Non-REM sleep, which has 4 stages, is characterized by progressively slower brain waves and deeper levels of relaxation.
Okay.
It's the time when our bodies repair tissues, restore energy, and strengthen the immune system.
So non-REM sleep is all about physical restoration.
Yeah.
What about REM sleep? I know that's when we dream,
Yeah.
but what else is happening during that stage?
REM sleep is a fascinating stage where our brains are highly active, almost as if we're awake.
Okay.
Our eyes dart around, our breathing becomes faster and irregular, and our muscles are essentially paralyzed.
It's like our brains are wide awake, but our bodies are completely offline. That's a pretty strange combination.
What's the purpose of all that brain activity during REM sleep?
That's where things get really interesting. Scientists believe that REM sleep plays a key role in memory consolidation, emotional processing, and even creativity.
Oh, wow.
It's like our brains are sifting through the day's experiences,
Okay.
integrating new information, and making connections that might not be apparent during our waking hours.
So REM sleep is like our brain's nightly therapy session,
Yeah.
helping us process emotions, make sense of our experiences, and even spark new ideas. It's a compelling theory, and it highlights the importance of getting enough of both REM and non-REM sleep for optimal cognitive function and emotional well-being.
It makes me wonder about people who consistently skimp on sleep. Are they missing out on those crucial brain benefits?
Chronic sleep deprivation can have far-reaching consequences,
Right.
impacting everything from our mood and cognitive performance to our physical health and immune function.
So that feeling of grogginess and brain fog when we're sleep deprived is just the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. Over time, chronic sleep loss can increase the risk of developing serious health conditions like obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and even some types of cancer.
Wow, that's a powerful reminder to prioritize sleep. It's not just about feeling rested, it's about protecting our long-term health and well-being.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
while we all experience occasional sleepless nights,
Right.
it's important to pay attention to our sleep patterns and seek help if we're consistently struggling to get a good night's rest.
So we've explored the importance of sleep and the different stages we cycle throughout the night. But I know there are some people who experience sleep in a very different way, those who suffer from sleep disorders.
Right.
What are some of the most common sleep disorders and what causes them?
Insomnia is perhaps the most well-known sleep disorder, characterized by difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, or both.
Right.
It can be caused by a variety of factors, including stress anxiety, poor sleep habits, certain medications, or underlying medical conditions.
I know I've definitely experienced bouts of insomnia when I'm stressed or anxious. It's like my mind just won't shut off and I end up tossing and turning all night. But what about other sleep disorders?
Another common one is sleep apnea, a disorder in which breathing repeatedly stops and starts during sleep.
Okay.
The most common type of obstructive sleep apnea occurs when the muscles in the back of the throat relax and block the airway.
So people with sleep apnea literally stop breathing for short periods throughout the night. That sounds terrifying.
It can be those with sleep apnea often snore loudly, gasp for air, and wake up feeling unrefreshed. And beyond the sleep disruption, sleep apnea can increase the risk of heart problems, stroke, and other health issues.
It's amazing how something as seemingly simple as breathing can become so disrupted during sleep. What about treatments for sleep disorders? Are there effective ways to manage these conditions?
Fortunately, there are treatments available. Lifestyle changes like losing weight, avoiding alcohol and caffeine before bed, and establishing a consistent sleep schedule can help with insomnia.
Those sound like good habits for everyone, not just those with insomnia.
You're absolutely right. For sleep apnea, continuous positive airway pressure, or CPAP therapy, is often the go-to treatment.
Okay.
It involves wearing a mask that delivers pressurized air to keep the airway open during sleep.
It's encouraging to know that there are effective treatments for these common sleep disorders,
Yeah.
but I know there are some less common, even bizarre sleep disorders out there. What are some of the more unusual sleep conditions that researchers have identified?
Narcolepsy is a fascinating and often misunderstood disorder. People with narcolepsy experience excessive daytime sleepiness and can suddenly fall asleep even during activities like driving or having a conversation.
I've heard of narcolepsy, but I always imagine it as people just randomly falling asleep anywhere, anytime. Is that really how it works?
It's a bit more complex than that. People with narcolepsy often experience other symptoms, such as cataplexy, a sudden loss of muscle control triggered by strong emotions like laughter or excitement.
So someone could be laughing and suddenly collapse even though they're fully conscious.
Exactly. It's thought to be caused by a dysfunction in the brain's sleep-wake regulation system,
Okay.
and it can be quite disruptive to daily life.
That sounds incredibly challenging to manage. Are there any other unusual sleep disorders that you find particularly intriguing?
Another one that comes to mind is REM sleep behavior disorder,
Okay.
a condition in which people act out their dreams sometimes with violent movements.
Wait, so they're physically acting out their dreams, like punching or kicking?
Hmm.
That sounds potentially dangerous, both for themselves and anyone sharing their bed.
It's thought to be caused by a failure of the brain's normal muscle paralysis during REM sleep.
Okay.
Normally, our muscles are essentially frozen during REM sleep, preventing us from acting out our dreams.
Right.
But people with REM sleep behavior disorder lack that paralysis, allowing their dream actions to spill over into the real world.
Wow, the world of sleep is so much more complex and fascinating than I ever imagined.
Yeah.
We've gone from those basic stages of sleep to these unusual and sometimes unsettling disorders. It makes me realize how much we still don't know about this essential aspect of our lives.
Absolutely. Sleep is a rich and complex domain, and researchers are continuing to unravel its mysteries. Each new discovery brings us closer to understanding this vital process and its profound impact on our physical and mental well-being.
Okay, we've explored the fascinating world of sleep and all its complexities. Now I'm ready to dive into another realm that profoundly shapes our behavior, the powerful world of hormones.
Hormones are the chemical messengers that orchestrate a symphony of bodily functions, influencing everything from growth and development to metabolism, to mood, sleep, and even our social interactions.
I think most people associate hormones with puberty in the teenage years when our bodies are going through all sorts of changes.
Yeah.
But do hormones continue to play a role in our lives beyond those adolescent years?
Absolutely. Hormones are active throughout our lives, influencing our energy levels, our sleep-wake cycles, our stress responses, our immune function, and so much more.
Okay.
They're like the conductors of our biological orchestra, ensuring that all our systems are working together in harmony.
I'm picturing tiny conductors with batons directing all those complex processes.
Yeah.
But let's zoom in on a specific area where hormones play a starring role: sexual development and reproductive behavior.
That's a fascinating area where hormones exert a profound influence. Androgens like testosterone
Uh-huh.
and estrogens like estradiol are often referred to as sex hormones, but their roles extend far beyond reproduction.
So it's not just about those stereotypical male and female hormones.
Exactly. Both androgens and estrogens are present in both males and females, just in different proportions.
Right.
And their effects are widespread, influencing not just our physical development, but also our behavior, our mood, and even our cognitive function.
It's interesting how we often think of hormones as dictating our behavior, like some sort of biological puppet master, but I'm realizing that it's much more nuanced than that.
It's not about hormones controlling our every move.
Right.
It's about how they interact with our genes, our environment, and our own personal experiences to shape our behavior in complex and often subtle ways.
So it's more like an intricate dance than a straightforward cause and effect relationship.
Exactly, and that dance begins early in life with prenatal hormones playing a role in shaping the developing brain and influencing a range of traits and behaviors.
I remember learning about how prenatal exposure to testosterone can influence things like play styles in childhood and even spatial abilities. It's fascinating how those early hormonal influences can have such long-lasting effects.
Absolutely, and of course we can't forget about the dramatic hormonal changes that occur during puberty.
Right.
That's when those surges in testosterone and estrogen trigger the development of secondary sexual characteristics and bring about a whole host of behavioral and emotional changes.
Puberty, it's a time of incredible transformation, both physically and emotionally. It's no wonder teenagers are often stereotyped as moody and unpredictable. They're riding a hormonal roller coaster.
It's certainly a period of significant hormonal fluctuations,
Yeah.
and those fluctuations can influence everything from energy levels and sleep patterns to mood swings, risk-taking behavior, and even social interactions.
It's like our brains and bodies are going through a major rewiring process during puberty, and hormones are the electricians making those connections.
It's an apt analogy,
Yeah,
and while those dramatic hormonal shifts eventually level out as we reach adulthood,
right.
hormones continue to play a role throughout our lives, influencing our mood, our energy levels, our sleep, and even our cognitive function.
I'm realizing that hormones are much more than just those teenage angst-inducing chemicals. Yeah. They're essential for maintaining our physical and mental health throughout our lives.
Absolutely, and that brings us to a sensitive and often misunderstood topic,
Okay.
the role of hormones in sexual orientation.
I know this is an area where there's been a lot of research and debate. What does the current scientific evidence tell us about the relationship between hormones and sexual orientation?
Sexual orientation is a complex trait that's influenced by a combination of genetic, hormonal, and environmental factors. While researchers have explored various hypotheses about the role of hormones in sexual orientation, the evidence is complex and doesn't point to a simple cause and effect relationship.
So it's not as simple as saying that certain hormone levels determine a person's sexual orientation.
Exactly. It's important to emphasize that sexual orientation is a natural variation in human experience.
Right.
And the scientific evidence overwhelmingly supports the view that it's a fundamental aspect of a person's identity, not something that can or should be changed.
I'm glad we're addressing this topic with sensitivity and respect for the diversity of human experience. Now, let's shift gears again and delve into another fundamental aspect of what makes us human, the incredible power of learning and memory.
Learning and memory are essential for our survival, our growth, and our ability to navigate the world around us. They allow us to acquire knowledge, adapt to new situations, and build relationships.
We often take learning and memory for granted, but when you stop to think about it, they're truly amazing processes. How do we transform those fleeting experiences into lasting memories? What's happening in the brain when we learn something new?
That's a question that has fascinated scientists for centuries. And while we've made remarkable progress in understanding the neural basis of learning and memory, there's still much we don't know. But we do know that learning involves changes in the strength and connections between neurons in the brain, a process known as synaptic plasticity.
Synaptic plasticity, it sounds like our brains are constantly rewiring themselves as we learn.
That's exactly right. Imagine your brain as a vast network of roads connecting different cities. Those roads are the synapses, the connections between neurons. And as we learn, those roads can be widened, paved, or even rerouted to create new pathways.
So the more we use a particular pathway, the stronger and more efficient it becomes.
Exactly. That's the principle behind neurons that fire together, wire together. Repeated activation of a particular pathway strengthens the connections between those neurons, making it easier for signals to travel along that route in the future.
It's like practicing a skill or studying for a test. The more we repeat the information or practice the movements, the stronger those neural pathways become, and the easier it is to recall the information or perform the skill.
That's a great analogy. And this plasticity isn't limited to simple skills or facts. It also applies to our emotions, our beliefs, and even our personalities. Our brains are constantly adapting and reshaping themselves in response to our experiences throughout our lives.
That's a really empowering thought. It means that we have the potential to change our brains, to learn new things, to break bad habits, and to create new patterns of thought and behavior.
Absolutely. But learning and memory aren't just about strengthening existing connections. They also involve creating new ones. When we learn something new, our brains can actually form new synapses, expanding the network of roads in that brain city.
So our brains are not only rewiring themselves, but also building new infrastructure as we learn. That's amazing.
And it highlights the incredible adaptability and resilience of the human brain. It's not a static organ, but a dynamic system that's constantly evolving in response to our experiences.
Okay, we've talked about synaptic plasticity and the brain's ability to rewire itself, but what about those different types of memory we mentioned earlier, like declarative memory and non-declarative memory? What's the difference between those and how are they processed in the brain?
Declarative memory, also known as explicit memory, is the type of memory we can consciously recall.
Okay.
It includes memories for facts, events, and personal experiences.
So if I remember what I had for breakfast this morning, that's declarative memory.
Exactly. And if you can recite the capital of France or remember the plot of your favorite movie, that's declarative memory at work. Non-declarative memory, on the other hand, operates outside of conscious awareness. It's often called implicit memory because it's expressed through our actions rather than our conscious recollection.
So non-declarative memory is more about skills and habits. Like I don't consciously think about how to ride a bike or tie my shoes. I just do it automatically.
That's a perfect example. Procedural memories, like riding a bike or playing a musical instrument, are a type of non-declarative memory. They're stored in brain regions like the basal ganglia and cerebellum, which are involved in motor control and coordination.
It's amazing how much we do without even thinking about it, thanks to those non-declarative memories.
Absolutely. And another type of non-declarative memory is priming. It's the phenomenon where exposure to a stimulus influences our response to a later stimulus, even if we don't consciously remember the initial exposure.
Can you give me an example of that?
Imagine you see a list of words that includes the word doctor. Later, you're asked to complete a word fragment like NRE. You're more likely to complete it as nurse because you were primed by the earlier exposure to the word doctor.
So even though I might not consciously remember seeing the word doctor, it still influenced my response later on. That's fascinating.
It highlights how much of our mental processing happens beneath the surface of conscious awareness.
Okay, we've got declarative and non-declarative memory, but where are these different types of memories actually stored in the brain? Is it all in one place or are different brain regions involved?
Different brain regions play distinct roles in memory formation, storage, and retrieval. The hippocampus, a seahorse-shaped structure deep within the brain, is crucial for forming new declarative memories. Think of it like the brain's librarian, helping us file new memories into the right shelves.
So if the hippocampus is damaged, like in the case of HM, people can no longer form new declarative memories.
It's exactly. HM's case provided invaluable insights into the role of the hippocampus in memory formation after his surgery, which removed portions of his hippocampus. He could still recall old memories, but he couldn't form new ones.
That must have been incredibly challenging for him. It's like his brain was stuck in time, unable to create new experiences and store them as memories.
It was a profound and devastating condition. But his case also revealed the remarkable resilience of the human brain, despite his severe declarative memory impairments. HM could still learn new skills and habits, demonstrating that other brain regions like the basal ganglia and cerebellum were still intact and functioning.
So even without a functioning hippocampus, his brain could still learn and adapt in other ways. That's a powerful reminder that the brain is not a monolithic entity, but a complex network of interconnected systems.
And each of those systems contributes to the rich tapestry of our memories and experiences.
Okay, we've explored different types of memory and the key brain regions involved. Now let's zoom back in on that concept of synaptic plasticity, the brain's ability to change and adapt in response to experience. I'm especially curious about long-term potentiation, or LTP. What is it and why is it so important for learning and memory?
LTP is like the cellular basis of learning and memory. It's a process that strengthens the connections between neurons, making it easier for them to communicate with each other in the future.
So when we learn something new or repeat a behavior, those neural connections get stronger, making it easier to recall that information or perform that action later on.
Exactly. Imagine two neurons trying to communicate with each other. The more they talk, the better their connection becomes. It's like a path through a forest.
Hmm.
The more people walk along that path, the clearer and more well-trodden it becomes.
So LTP is like paving those neural pathways, making them smoother and more efficient for information to travel along.
That's a great way to think about it. And one of the key players in LTP is a receptor called the NMDA receptor, which sits on the surface of neurons.
NMDA receptor, that rings a bell. Can you remind me what it does and why it's so important?
Think of the NMDA receptor as a gatekeeper for learning. It's a special type of receptor that only opens when certain conditions are met, meaning that only meaningful signals get through to trigger LTP.
So it's not just any old signal that can trigger LTP. It has to be something significant.
Exactly. The NMDA receptor requires both glutamate, the main excitatory neurotransmitter in the brain, and depolarization of the neuron's membrane to open.
Depolarization, that's when the electrical charge across the neuron's membrane changes,
So
right?
it's like a key turning in a lock. The glutamate is the key, and depolarization is the turning motion. Only when both happen does the NMDA receptor open, allowing calcium ions to flow into the neuron.
And those calcium ions are what trigger the downstream changes that lead to LTP.
Precisely, those calcium ions act like messengers, activating a cascade of molecular events that ultimately strengthen the synapse, making it more likely that those two neurons will fire together in the future.
It's incredible to think that these tiny molecules and receptors orchestrate the grand symphony of learning and memory.
And it's not just about strengthening existing connections. LTP can also lead to the formation of new synapses, creating entirely new pathways for information to flow through the brain.
So our brains are constantly rewiring themselves, forming new connections and strengthening existing ones as we learn and grow.
And this process continues throughout our lives. It's what allows us to adapt to new challenges, acquire new skills, and form lasting memories.
Okay, we've explored the cellular basis of learning and memory, and it's clear that LTP is a key player in making those changes happen. But what about those factors that influence how easily we learn and remember things? I know that some days I feel like a sponge soaking up information, while other days I can barely remember what I had for breakfast. What are some of the factors that affect our ability to learn and remember?
Our ability to learn and remember is influenced by a complex interplay of factors, including our genetics, our age, our stress levels, our sleep quality, our diet, and even our overall health.
So it's not just about willpower or trying harder. There are all these other factors at play that can impact our cognitive function.
Absolutely. Some factors like genetics and age are beyond our control, but there are many things we can do to optimize our brain health and support those learning and memory processes.
Like what I'm all ears.
Regular physical activity, for example, has been shown to improve memory and cognitive function. Exercise increases blood flow to the brain, stimulates the growth of new brain cells, and even enhances synaptic plasticity.
So getting those endorphins pumping isn't just good for our bodies, it's a brain booster too.
Exactly, and a healthy diet plays a crucial role as well. A diet rich in fruits, vegetables, and healthy fats provides the building blocks for healthy brain cells and supports those all-important neurotransmitters.
So those healthy habits we hear so much about aren't just good for our waistlines, they're essential for our brains too.
Absolutely, and let's not forget about sleep. We've already talked about how crucial it is for memory consolidation and clearing out those brain toxins. Think of it as giving your brain a chance to recharge and reset overnight.
A good night's sleep is like hitting the refresh button on your brain. I can definitely get behind that. But what about stress? I know when I'm stressed out, it's like my brain goes into lockdown mode and I can't think straight.
Chronic stress is like a weed in your brain garden, choking the life out of healthy brain cells and impairing those learning and memory pathways.
So finding ways to manage stress, whether it's through exercise, meditation, spending time in nature, or just taking breaks when I need them, can actually protect my brain from damage.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of social connection, engaging in meaningful conversations, spending time with loved ones, and even just laughing with friends can boost those feel-good neurochemicals and help keep your brain sharp.
So it's not just about solo brain training, it's about connecting with others and nurturing those social bonds.
Absolutely. Our brains are wired for connection, and those social interactions can have a profound impact on our cognitive health and overall well-being.
This is making me rethink my whole approach to brain health. It's not just about crossword puzzles and memory games. It's about taking care of myself holistically, physically, mentally, and socially.
And don't forget about the power of novelty and challenge. Learning a new language, picking up a musical instrument, or even just trying a new recipe can stimulate those neural pathways and help keep your brain flexible and adaptable.
I love that idea. It's like giving your brain a workout by stepping outside of your comfort zone and trying something new.
Exactly. The brain thrives on novelty and challenge. It's what keeps those neural pathways firing and prevents those mental cobwebs from forming.
You know, we've explored so much in this deep dive, from the mechanics of hearing to the mysteries of sleep to the power of hormones and the remarkable adaptability of the brain. It's incredible how much is happening beneath the surface of our awareness every moment of every day.
And we've only just scratched the surface. The field of neuroscience is constantly evolving, with new discoveries being made all the time.
It makes you realize that our brains are these vast, uncharted territories full of potential and possibility.
And as we continue to explore those uncharted territories, we gain a deeper understanding of ourselves, our capabilities, and the incredible power of the human mind.
Well, this deep dive has certainly left me with a lot to think about and a whole new list of brain-boosting habits to try out. Thank you for taking us on this incredible journey through the fascinating world of the brain and senses.
It's been a pleasure. Remember, your brain is an incredible organ capable of amazing feats of learning, adaptation, and growth. Nurture it well, and it will reward you with a lifetime of learning, creativity, and connection.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've enjoyed exploring the wonders of the human brain and all its complexities. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing and those synapses firing.